You scroll through hundreds of job descriptions, but they all sound the same. You spend so much time on every application, but it doesn't seem to matter. You send off application after application, but never hear back. You thought the interview went so well, but it's a no. You jump through all the hoops. The news keeps saying how there are all these employers that are struggling to find people to hire. So why does finding a great job have to be so hard? It doesn't seem very logical or fair. It's not. The system is broken. It's not your fault. The process most people go through to get a job is awful. But here's the good news. The system isn't very smart. In fact, it's downright dumb. It can be beaten. How? Most prospective employers and employees today are using the same old tired strategies that have been around forever. It's like professional camouflage. Everybody just blends into the crowd. But you don't have to be that way anymore. You can get traction. You can stand out from the crowd to unleash your God-given potential, to help a world in need, to do work that matters, to earn what you and your family deserve. You can do this. You're meant to do this. There are bright things on the horizon for you. This is the way. Welcome to the workshop. Get hired fast without settling, getting ignored, or losing hope. My name is Eric Woodard. I'm a high-performance career coach based out of Washington, D.C. And if you're joining us for this workshop today, I want to acknowledge you because, first of all, you're brilliant for being here. And second of all, I know how valuable your time is. So great job being here. I know there's still a few more people joining. And if you're watching us on the replay, you're not quite as cool as the people who are here live. And you're still pretty cool too. So if you would put in the chat where you're from and how long you've been on the job search. If you don't mind, put in the chat because mostly I want to make sure that people can hear me. And we're going to get started right now. So where you're from and how long you've been on the job search. All right, folks. So look, being on a job hunt can often feel a lot like pounding sand. Sometimes it can feel like you're waiting on a glacier, right? I see you there, Beth in Florida. I've been on the job search for 6 weeks. Yuri in Chicago, Ken in Dallas, Stephen in Austin, Max in the Bay Area. You know, sometimes Taylor in Newport, it can feel like being lost at sea. Vivek in Phoenix. Sometimes Demetrius here in DC, it can feel like wandering in the desert. Nancy in Michigan. Sometimes Michael in Miami and Michael in Baltimore, it can feel like being in the arena. Sometimes Osaka in Florida and Noel in Phoenix, it can feel like looking into an abyss. Amanda in Texas, if you are looking for, and Dennis in Arizona and Laura, been on the job for 6 months. Emilio, I see you there in Larga. If you're somebody who's unsure about what direction you want your career to go, Jimmy in Jacksonville, if you're struggling to find ways to describe what you do, if you're uncertain if your resume is any good, Robert in Naples, if you're wrestling with how to follow up after you apply, if you're tired of applying and applying and applying and hearing nothing back, Jim in Arizona, been on the job search forever. If you're doing interviews that seem like they go great and then you still get a big fat no, Paul in Jacksonville. If you're trapped in a job you don't like and you're not sure how you can escape, Mike in Chicago and Julie in Florida, and especially if you're losing hope, this is for you. And on the other hand, if you're somebody who's just kind of super casual about your career, not willing to do a lot of work, if you're reluctant to take responsibility for the results you've been getting, if you're just interested in finding a job to make money, if you're stuck in your ways and closed-minded about trying new things and you're really committed to all those things that you know that people have been telling you, if you're unwilling to be authentic, this may not be the workshop for you. So what you're going to learn in this workshop, how to get hired fast without settling, get ignored, or losing hope. I'm going to offer you 4 strategies and 9 tactics. And Joshua in Texas and everybody else, I just want you to know this workshop is mostly going to be one long big sales pitch. Nah. I'm not going to try to sell you anything today, folks, because when people decide to work with me, they do it because my stuff's different, right? And they get the feeling that the things they've been doing haven't been working, and the stuff they hear from me is different. And so that's why people sign up with me. And what I will say is, even though I'm not going to be selling anything today, I'm going to be offering a chance to do a call with me. If that's something you'd like to do, go ahead and sign up now. We're going to put the link in the chat. Sign up now because my calendar is going to fill up and I only have so many slots between now and the end of the year. And I'm offering a really cool deal right now for Black Friday, which I've never done before, which feels kind of salesy, and I don't care because I'm not trying to look good for you. I'm here to serve and to get you hired fast. So to that end, I'm just going to talk a little bit. Thanks, Daniel. Talk a little bit about my background and just why maybe possibly I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to give you 4 strategies, 9 tactics. And again, invite you to the call, and we're going to drop that in the chat here in just a second. And then we're going to have time to do Q&A. So here we go. Who is this guy, and why does he think he can help me find a job? Well, I grew up overseas. I came to the States when I was 17, wound up transferring college like 7 times. Here I am in the Midwest, like wondering why it's so cold and why there's no leaves on the trees. I eventually wound up as a scuba instructor on the island of Guam, and it was awesome. I spent about 10,000 hours underwater with the fish and the sun, and it was beautiful. And I got a little bored. And after a while, I was like, man, there's got to be something more exciting than this. So I thought, well, what would be the most prestigious, important job I could have? And I thought, well, that must be like something like the White House. And I know we just went through a political season here, so this was a long time ago. But I took out a piece of paper and I wrote a letter, and I said, "Dear Mr. President, you should hire me." And it was like the world's worst cover letter. And I mailed that sucker off, and I figured I'm never hearing from those guys. But that got me thinking. I applied to some grad schools, and I got into GW, and I got me thinking. And one time I was out riding past the Guam post office. I got a letter, and it was on White House stationery. And I opened it up, and it was an internship application. And I didn't know what an internship was, but I was really good at filling out applications. So I sent that in and figured I'm never going to hear back from those guys. And I didn't. So I got into grad school, and I landed in DC with like this big bushy haircut, was out like dumpster diving for furniture. And I ran past the White House, and I thought, those White House bastards, they never even bothered to let me know about that internship thing. So I found a payphone, I put in a quarter, and I called them up, and I said, hey, you bastards, what about that internship thing? And they're like, is this Eric from Guam? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm in DC now. They're like, man, we've been trying to get in touch with you. You start in the First Lady's office on Monday. So I bought a suit, got a haircut, and I showed up. And folks, I don't know if your politics match mine. Please forgive me if they don't. But this was back during the Clinton administration. And I started working for Hillary Rodham Clinton as one of her interns. And she was a great boss, right? Great boss. I eventually got hired on her staff in Hillary Land, followed her to the Senate. And then I followed her to the State Department, where I did a bunch of UNESCO stuff. And then I wound up as director of fellowships and internships at the Smithsonian Institution, where ever since then I've given a lot of talks about career stuff. I've done a lot of coaching. I've written a whole bunch of books because, all through this time, I've seen the same movie over and over and over, where people trying to figure out job stuff, and either early professionals or mid-career professionals or senior professionals, what have you, they tend to run into the same stuff. So I have all sorts of fancy degrees, all sorts of glowing testimonials. And the question is, can I help you? I don't know, probably, maybe. I've helped a lot of people. Let's find out. So here we go. Buckle up. 4 strategies that are going to help you get hired fast. So the way this is going to work, and some of you guys I already see there in the chat. Thanks for the shouts out. Hey, look at that. David already booked a call. Nice work, David. I see there in the chat. So put comments in the chat if you would, and I'll get to as many questions as I can as we go. And then we're going to have time for Q&A at the end. We're going to go really fast here, right? So write some stuff down if you don't already have something to write with. And if you're listening to this on the replay, like, pay attention, because there's going to be good stuff on here. Here we go. I see you there, DZOE Zo. Not sure how to pronounce your name, but I see you there. Nice to have you here. All right, so put this in the chat. What's a good resume about? If you would, put this in the chat. Thank you, Ann. Put this in the chat. What's a good resume about? I'll be curious. And there's a little bit of a delay between the time hey, Arthur, I see you there. Nice job. You booked a call, right? Nice work. Hi there, Rosa. So what's a good resume about? Put it in the chat. So Samantha says selling yourself. Mark says selling your value, right? Sarah says experience. Tell them, Jim says, tell them who you are. Jim, yep, I see there. Daniel, experience. You persuade them, expressing your prior experience. I haven't seen the correct answer yet, folks. What's a good resume about? Show what you bring to the table. What is uniquely you, Rosa? Tell your background. Says, okay, so a lot of you are saying a good resume is about you. And I want to offer this with a lot of love. That answer is incorrect. Thanks, Denise. That answer is incorrect. A good resume is not about you. A good resume is about them. A good resume is about the person or organization you're sending this to. Because if you want to be influential with another human being or another organization or whatever, the first thing you want to talk about is them. So look, if you get nothing out of this workshop, please know that when you're on a job hunt, it's not about you. It's not about your skills, your experience. It's not about any of that. Really, there's only one reason they're going to hire you. And that's that they trust you. And the way we build trust with another person is we make them feel seen, heard, and understood. We give them safety. Oh my goodness, this workshop's already delivering so much. Okay, so many job seekers think that our application's about them. It's not. Employers are focused on themselves. And those of you who are seasoned work people and professionals, like, you know this, right? The reason Google gives lunch to Googlers is not because the purpose of Google is to give free lunch to its staff. Google knows that its staff will make better Google if they're taken care of. But it's a means to the end, not the end unto itself. So a good resume is not about you. It's about them. And when I say resume, I'm talking about your cover letter, your application, your follow-up, your networking, the interview. It's all about them. So pay attention. You know, it's no reason that we often think a resume is about ourselves, because very often the first resume we ever did was coming out of college or coming out of school. And in school, it is very much about us. It's our cubby. It's our lunchbox. It's our worksheet. It's our report card, right? It's our trophy. And yet when we move to the working world, it's about the customer, the constituent, the client, the shareholder, right? So really, really important to be aware of this. A good resume and really all the stuff in your job search, make it about them. It will change the game for you. Okay, who can tell me? So these are books, right? Who can tell me if I went to a library and I looked at the words on the front cover of a shelf of storybooks, right? So shelf of storybooks, and on the front cover of the book, those books, there's some words. What do we call those words on the front cover of a storybook? What do we call those words on the front cover of a storybook? There's a name that we call those words on the front cover of a book. There you go, Mark, right? It's a title. There you go, Kazumi. Title. Exactly. Thanks, Craig. Exactly. 100% right. Title. Now, isn't it interesting that that's the same term we use to label people in the workplace? Which tells me that just like we put words to label a story in a storybook, the titles we give people are just labels for the story of one's career. And this brings us to strategy number 2. So many, job seekers are seeking out opportunities, or they think they need facts on their resume, right? And the opportunity instead is to tell stories. Stories are much more memorable, right? And here's the thing I would offer you. So here's another question for you. What % of human decision making do you think is emotional, and what % is logical, right? So is it like 50-50, 60-40, right? 40-60? What % is emotional to logical? All right. And the reason this is important is because this informs how important stories are. Okay. So Michael says it's 80-20. All right. Let's see if somebody can get the right answer on here. Sarah says 80-20. Okay. So a lot of people realize that emotion is more important. Taylor says 50-50. What % of human? So Vivek says 90-10. I haven't seen the right answer yet. Simona says 80% emotional. So here's the thing, folks. It's 100% emotional. Human decision-making is 100% emotional. And the reason we know this is when some poor person gets an injury through their limbic system and they lack the ability to have a lot of emotion. They're fine, except they can't make a single decision. And that's the debilitating part. Now, we may rationalize the original emotional decisions, right, based on logic. So, like, even in this workshop right now, the beginning of this workshop, probably in the first 5 or 6 seconds of this workshop, you made an emotional decision about whether, is this guy on the level? Is this guy going to offer me something that's useful? Like, you've already made the decision. And now you're just looking for logical. You're just looking for facts, right? It's 100% emotional. And the reason stories are so important is that's how we convey emotion, right? People will never remember the facts, but they'll always remember how you make them feel. So sometimes I get in trouble, like, how, if I were to ask you, how many of you remember, the telephone number you had when you were 5? And there's always a few people who are just genius, but a lot of you probably could remember how you felt on your 5th birthday, right? We can process about 40 bits of information a second through our conscious logical mind. We can do about 20 million through our non-conscious emotional mind. So it's hugely important, right? People don't make decisions based on facts. They may make it based on feelings. And when it comes to job searching, again, it's the feeling of trust. The reason they're going to hire you is, do they trust you? So you want to make your application a story, your cover letter, your resume. You want to make it all about stories. So perfect example. Hey, Ibsen booked a call. Nice job, Ibsen. Okay. So, like, perfect example. One time I was running an application process, and one of the people that had written in mentioned how their arm, they'd been in a terrible accident the summer before, and their arm had been severed. I felt so bad, right? So sure enough, we wanted to take that person. So the person's name was Maggie. So she came in the first day of the program, and guess what? 2 arms. Now, was I upset? Of course not. I was so glad she had both arms. And it was bandaged from where it had been partially severed and reattached, and she was doing some physical therapy and stuff, right? But again, I remember that story to this day, and it made an impact on me at the time, right? Do I remember a lot else about Maggie? Probably not. Maybe a little, right? I know. I'm sure Maggie's going to watch this workshop someday, and she's going to be like, he's talking about me. So I don't know, Maggie, if you're out there, I remember you. And I remember the stories you told, especially. Okay. So you want to tell lots of stories. Okay. So, hey, Mike C booked a call. Way to go, Mike. So who is this kid? Yeah, that's right, Ann. Who is this kid? Put it in the chat if you know. Who is this guy? What is this guy called? If you would, put it in the chat. Who knows? I'll give you a hint. He's from Idaho, right? This is a guy from Idaho. Who knows who this is? What's this guy called? There you go, Craig. Thank you, Craig. It's Napoleon. Napoleon who? That's right, Mike, Amanda. Napoleon Dynamite, right? Napoleon Dynamite. I'm sure we'll get a few others. Thanks, Rosa. Nice work. Nice job, Sarah. Okay, so here's the deal about Napoleon Dynamite. First of all, if you haven't seen this movie, stop your job search immediately and go watch it. I mean, come on. We're trying to create a society here, people. Thanks, Jay. And I don't want to spoil the movie for you. The deal is Napoleon Dynamite's this high school kid, teenager, and he sort of beats to his own drum. In this particular scene, Brandon knows. That's right, damn it, Tina. Right, Brandon knows. Right, in this particular scene, he's on stage in front of his entire school, and he's managed to get music up to the sound booth, but he's got to do some kind of performance. He hasn't practiced. The entire student body is watching. So the music plays, and Napoleon's standing there, and he doesn't really know what to do. That's right, Arthur. And so he decides to let loose, and he just does the craziest damn dance you've ever seen in your life. Right? Hey, Anatoly booked a call. Craziest dance you've ever seen. And when he's done, the student body is sort of quiet. And then they erupt in applause. And the reason they do is because it's so authentic, right? Authenticity is the golden coin of the realm. Jamie Kern-Lima, she's the founder of It Cosmetics. She says, everybody's a good dancer if they commit fully. And she's right. Right? She's right. Authenticity is your third strategy. So many try to be perfect. But let me ask you a question. Let's see if anybody gets this right. Who do humans hire? Put it in the chat, right? Who do humans hire? Right? And some of you are like, well, what about the ATS, Eric? What about all that? I'll tell you a secret right now. That is alchemy, right? Don't worry about the ATS, right? Because let's see if anybody gets it. Who do humans hire? Put it in the chat. Who do humans hire? Who do humans hire? If you were a human, and presumably everybody in this call is, people who want to grow themselves. Okay, so Linda and Denise and Daniel, There's something that you guys are all talking about. The words in all three of your answers. People. That's right, Tony. Humans hire humans, right? Humans don't hire robots, and robots don't hire humans, and robots don't hire robots. Exactly. So in your stuff, you want to give them evidence that you're a what? That you're a human. Be relatable, okay? And so many examples. One time I had two resumes. I was, again, it was a program. They were virtually the same. It was about 6 o'clock. I really wanted to go home and eat dinner. And I had two resumes, and Tom told me he played the trumpet. Who do you think we hired? Tom, because at least he played the trumpet. If you don't have evidence on your resume that you're a human, it's really something to, I mean, I can't tell you how many examples I have with this with the clients I work with. Recently, I had a client based out of Phoenix, and she put on her resume 2 truths and a lie at the end. She instantly got more interviews and got hired because she put that on there, right? One time I was working with Nina, and was like, Nina, what do you like to do for fun? And she's like, oh, she's sort of hemmed and hawed. And finally I got out of Nina that she had a pen collection. I'm like, well, that's super weird. Let's put that on there. She's like, no, it's unprofessional, right? So finally I get Nina to put on there that she's a pen collector. I hear from her a month later. She went into the interview. They talked about pens for 30 minutes and she got the offer. People are going to hire you because of who you are, not in spite of it. So those of you who are concealing your age by taking off the graduation dates, stop. It's never the scandal. It's always the cover up. And if they're not going to hire you because of who you are, you don't want to work for them anyway. And look, folks, I know there's a lot of isms out there. Racism, sexism, racism. I think I said racism, right? Ableism, ageism. Okay. I'm not going to pretend that those aren't real things. And at the end of the day, in spite of that, the reason they're going to hire you, regardless of how much privilege you come to the table with, the reason they're going to hire you is because they trust you. And if we start off our job search by saying, ooh, I'm going to conceal some things because I don't trust you, guess what that's going to do to the trust that they have for you? Don't do it. Don't do it. Maria's booked a call. Right. Nice work. All right, Alethea. She booked a call too. Look at all these calls being booked. Authenticity is your superpower. Okay, so here's what Abe Lincoln said. He said, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Thank you, Abe. Appreciate that. Okay, so this goes to consistency, or actually I've been meaning to go through and rename the slide, calling it systems, right? The results you're currently getting are perfectly attuned to your current systems. So if you want to get different results, you got to get a different system, okay? Because the idea is we don't want to work hard here. We want to work smart, right? We want to get the quality of what we're doing up to a certain level, and then we want to unleash scale, okay? And if what you're doing isn't working, you want to iterate. There's no such thing as a failed experiment. And there's no one way to write a resume or a cover letter or to interview. There's no one way. Are there some things that work? Yeah, we're about to dive into that. And nobody knows what's best for you than you. And if what you're doing isn't working, try something else. And the only reason you're not getting the results you want right now is you don't have a system that's serving you. That's it. Okay, so Robert asks, how do we get through AI so we land in front of a human? We're going to talk about that, right? And just to give you a preview, Robert, if I was, let's say the person you love most in the world was kidnapped. I hope that doesn't happen. And the only way that they would be unkidnapped is if you could reach the project manager at company XYZ. Do you think you could reach project manager at company XYZ by the end of the day? I bet you could. I bet. And if you couldn't reach them, I bet you could get pretty damn close, right? So this notion that, that we can't find people in the world, nah, nice job, Mahir. I see you booked a call, right? We can find people. We're going to talk a little bit more about it here in a second. All right. Remember, it's not about you. It's your systems. How do you put all of this to work? All right. We're going to dive into tactics now, my friends. We're going to dive into tactics. So here we go. Buckle up. We're going to go a little fast. 9 tactics. Let's go with tactic number 1. Now, look, folks, if you haven't been paying attention or you've been watching the replay, come back to me because this is one of the best things I'm going to offer you in this workshop today. Okay, so pay attention. And this is a question for the chat. Here's a situation. Let's say there's a lake, and in the middle of the lake, somebody's drowning. Now, they're surrounded by other people in little boats. Okay, somebody's in the middle of the lake drowning, and they're surrounded by other people in little boats. If that was a job hunt, who's the person drowning? Okay, so Person drowning in the middle of the lake. They're surrounded by other people in little boats. If that was a job hunt, who's the person drowning? Max, you're going to get a replay of this, and I'm going to give you a summary of all four things when we're done. And make sure you're taking notes, right? Make sure you're taking notes. Full ownership, right? I got you covered, Max. Don't worry. So who's the person drowning? Anatoly says the employer. That's an interesting answer, right? Who's the person drowning? Jim says it's me, right? Okay, let's see if we can get some other takers here. Right? Who's the person drowning? Taylor thinks it's Taylor. Yep. Good job, Taylor. Daniel says the employer, question mark. Right? Yeah. Who's the Denise says it's Denise. Okay. Who's the person drowning? I so appreciate you guys diving, no pun intended, diving in here to give these answers. Okay. Lori says it's me. Okay. So here's the thing, folks. So here's the thing. A lot of you who are thinking it's you're the ones drowning, Amanda, that you can't swim. It's actually the employer, or Emilio, like the recruiter, or Lakshmi, right? It's the employer. It may feel like we're the ones drowning, and you're not. You're not drowning. You know, one time I had a client come to me and they said, "Oh, I really blew up my life." And I was like, "Well, that sounds tough." I said, "Can I ask you a question?" They were like, "Yeah." I was like, "What'd you use? C4, plastique, dynamite, TNT?" And they're like, "Huh? Well, you blew up your life. You must have had some sort of explosive." They're like, "No, I didn't blow up my life. I just, did the thing." And I was like, "Oh, so you're not drowning." Okay. And even if your lizard amygdala brain is telling you that you're drowning, you're not. You're actually safe. And if the reason employers are going to hire you is because they trust you, the opportunity here is to give them safety. And that's hard to do if you yourself don't feel safe. So if you feel like you're drowning right now, your number one job in your job search, you want to boost that. And this takes us to mindset. This is one of the things I work on with clients, right? You're not the one drowning. And if you feel like you are, employers smell it. And for those of you who are like, "Well, no, I put on a good face." Nah, it's not that good. They smell it. Okay. Most people are like, "Oh, I'm drowning. Help me, pick me. Right? Samantha, there you go. Nice job booking a call, Samantha. Right? They're like, me, I'm the one who's drowning. But it's them. They'd be lucky to get you, folks. You're out there serving cake. You're serving cake. Now, not everybody may want a slice of the cake you're serving, and that's okay, but it's not going to keep you from serving cake. Okay. You want to come from a place of service, right? And this gets into what we're going to talk about in terms of follow-up. Those of you, and I've seen this in the chat where you've said, "Well, it's about selling yourself." Nope. Right. Nice job, Taylor. Nice job signing up. Right. It's not about selling yourself, folks. Selling people is weird. Buying people is weirder. We've gone over this historically, right? Like, this isn't about selling, and nobody wants to be sold, right? What they want is they want to be seen, heard, and understood. You want to approach your job search from a place of service. Okay. Big thing there, folks. If I really hope you hear this, right? There's a reason when you do your Christmas shopping on Black Friday, those of you who are going out, maybe if you're a viewer, right? And you're going through a store and you hold the door for the person behind you, you don't feel self-conscious or pushy or anything like that. You're doing it because it's there to serve. And if they don't want you to hold the door and they wait for you to close the door, that's fine. It's kind of weird, but it's not about you. It's about service. Okay. Let's go to tactic number 2. Some of you may have seen the show Deadliest Catch, right? It's this show where these fishermen in Alaska off the Bering Sea, they're on these crab fishing, these fishing boats, and it's a pitching deck, and it's usually really icy and kind of scary. And if they fall in the water, they have like 30 seconds to live because the water is so cold. And what they do is they take these big steel cages and they put them on the bottom of the ocean floor with a little bit of bait. And what happens is Charlie the crab walks along and says, oh, there's some food. And so Charlie goes in and starts nibbling, and all of a sudden his buddy Dave comes in and says, "Oh, there's some more food," and more crabs start joining. Now here's the interesting thing. Pretty soon all the bait's gone, right? And so if and when a crab decides to leave, the other crabs will pull them back in, even removing a limb, or they'll do a crab murder. Right? They'll do crab slaughter, right? Meanwhile, more and more crabs are joining. And the reason crabs do that is instinctively crabs feel safer with other crabs. But of course, it's the worst thing because they all get pulled up to become dinner. And this brings us to the next tactic, which is your environment, right? If you're in an environment that's not supporting you, you got to get that handled. Okay. And sometimes, look, we have family members that love us that are saying, "Ooh, just settle, just do what's safe. The kids need to eat food." And like, right. But if your environment's not supporting you in terms of giving you safety and helping you focus on coming from a place of service, it will drag you down just like it drags down those crabs. Okay. So if you're not even considering it, it's something to pay attention to. Some of you have heard about the idea of reference groups, right? Where the average weight, education, income, what have you, of the 5 people we hang out with the most. So if you're not hanging out with people that lift you up, at least in one or more areas, right? That means that they're pulling you down, right? And this is like the media you consume, the books you read. These don't even have to be living people. The music you listen to, it's really vital that you're intentional and you safeguard it. Okay, super important. Okay, let's move on to tactic number 3. It's hard to hit a blurry target, which brings us to the idea of clarity. I can't tell you, hey, Rastislav, nice job signing up. I can't tell you how many people I talk to, and I'm like, hey, what do you want to do? And they're like, well, I want to do something where I help people. I'm like, that's beautiful. Single tier of Diet Coke. How much money do you want to make? They're like, well, anywhere between $20,000 and $190,000, right? And here's the thing on that. We want to have the map before we go into the forest. This relates to a thing called the reticular activating system, which is basically the part of our brain when we go to buy a new car and we drive off the car lot and we're like, nobody's got this car. Then all of a sudden we see that car 5 times, right? Our brain will literally find what it's looking for. And so if we're not super specific with what we tell our brain to look for, it literally will be blind to it. Right? Bruce Lee had a really cool quote: be careful what you tell yourself because your body's listening. Right? So clarity. If you're not really clear about the things that you're, that the ways that you're going to be able to serve the world and what you need to be able to do that, it's going to show up in your job search. It's not just nice to have, it's vital. There's a reason when NASCAR drivers drive 500 miles in a circle that they never look at the outer wall, because the car will tend to go where they look. Right? Same principle here. Okay, this is a fun one. Okay, tactic number 4. If I went to a store and I bought this, what would I be buying? Put it in the chat. You're right, Denise. Being intentional is so important, right? So important. Yeah, that's right. That's great. Okay, so if I went to the store and I bought this, what would I be buying? Put it in the chat. I see there, Denise, with that posted. That's great. So Denise says it's a drill, right? A drill motor, right? A thing to drive screws in, says Anatoly. Tony says a power tool. What would I be buying if I went to the store and I bought this? Way to take out screws in an easier fashion. Not bad, Mark, right? What would I be buying if I bought this? Something to make your life easier. Yeah. Okay, Rosa. Home improvement. Yeah, you guys know I'm tricky. Right? Nobody said it's a drill, right? But okay, so here's the thing. Capability to perforate. Okay, convenience. Yeah, you guys are pretty good. Right? When I go to buy this, I'm actually not buying a drill, because nobody needs a drill sitting around the garage, right? I mean, as beautiful as Ryobi makes these things, all right, nobody needs this sitting around their garage. What I actually need is the hole. And actually, I don't need a bunch of holes in my walls. What I actually need is a place to put the hook. And now that I think about it, I don't need a bunch of hooks hanging out of my walls. Just gash my arm open as I walk by. What I need is a place to put the picture of my family. And actually, now that I think about it, I don't even really want the picture of my family on the wall. What I want is the feeling I get when I look at the picture of my beautiful family that's hanging on that hook, that's in that hole that was made by the drill. All right. And this takes us to tactic number 4, which is giving them safety. Most job seekers aren't even thinking about the employer. They're just busy talking about themselves. Okay. Right. They're busy talking about themselves. So first of all, don't do that. And then when you're talking about them, you don't want to talk about the drill or the hole or the hook or even the picture, right? What you want to talk about is what keeps them up at night when they're laying in bed trying to go to sleep. If you can get to that sort of specificity and that black swan, it'll really make you stand out from the crowd. And it just means that you're job seeking at a different level. So Amy asks, what question should I ask to avoid being in a position where I have responsibility without the corresponding authority? Ooh, that's a great question, Amy. That's a great question. And that actually sort of boils down to the idea of agreements, right? Agreements. And I just want to offer you something about that. Who's that question about, Amy? That's a question about you. So in a job search, I might not ask that question, right? I would keep the focus on them. When you get the offer, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, that's the time to create some agreements around questions like that. But until you actually get the offer, I would hold off on a question like that. So there's a lot there in what you ask, Amy. So I don't know if I'm doing it justice, but that's what I would have to say about that. Because we want to give safety. And if we ask any questions that sort of put them on their back heel, it's no good, right? So often people, when in job search, struggle with getting really clear about what they like, want, or need. When I say they, I'm talking about the employer. And the opportunity is to really get clear about it. Right? How can you make them, and them as the employer in this case, feel seen, heard, and understood? Right? It's just going to change the game. All right, next tactic. I think this is tactic number 5. This is a copy of my resume, or one of my resumes, and my resume is sort of like the kitchen sink of resumes. It's the primordial ooze of resumes. And what this brings us to is tactic number 5 is your paper. Right? And those of you who are like, well, I follow best practices and stop doing that. You don't want to look like everybody else. It's professional camouflage. All right. And for those of you who have that big wall of text at the top of your resume, talking about here's my professional summary, stop doing that. Because you guys, those of you who have hired people, what's the first thing you look at on a resume? Where are they now, or where were they most recently? So start with experience. If you don't have hyperlinks in your resume, put in hyperlinks, right? They may not click them, but at least you shows them you know how to use the interweb. Make the resume about them, right? Cover letters about them. I can't tell you, one of my favorite things to do is look at cover letters, and you can do this as a fun family home game if you want. Go to your last cover letter and count the number of I's and me's. You might be surprised. Now, I've actually tried to write a cover letter with no I's or me, and English doesn't work that good. Right? English doesn't write good, bad, use words, right? So you got to have a few I's and me's, but if you can have at least as many you's and they's and names of their organization in a cover letter, it changes the game. It's not about your passion or what you're interested in or what you like to do or even what you think in terms of how you can help them, right? People are going to believe what you show them more than what you tell them. Right? This is one of the things I work with clients, right? Communicate with employers in a way they can't ignore. Have hyperlinks and other things. Okay. If a job application is submitted, but there's no follow-up, does it even make a sound? I would humbly suggest to you that it doesn't. And for those of you who are like, well, yeah, I follow up after an interview, that's fantastic. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about following up after you apply or even before you apply. And for those of you who are like, ooh, but isn't that pushy, Eric? Isn't that pushy? Is it? Go back to the example of the drowning person, right? If somebody was face down laying in the water and you said, hey, buddy, and they were just motionless, would you be like, ooh, well, I pinged them once. I don't want to follow up. It might me look too pushy. No, you jump in the water, you'd swim over, you'd splash him, you'd flip him over. You might even lock lips and start doing mouth to mouth. And if the person came to you and said, lady, I'm just snorkeling, you'd be like, my bad. But you'd be willing to risk being pushy in order to save their lives. The same thing is happening here with these. Look, we know they're in distress. They put out a job announcement to say, help, we need help. And then the only question is, like, how committed are you to helping them? Are you committed to looking good and not being pushy? Or are you going to be so focused on serving them that what they think about you is none of your business? This is how you take your job search to the next level. And follow-up is key, right? A perfect example, there's a guy named Darren Hardy. Some of you may know him. He used to publish Success Magazine. He tells a story when he used to be a realtor. Apparently with, the MLS system, when selling contract expires, like all the realtors in town sort of descend on that house because they know somebody's trying to sell a house and the realtor they had wasn't successful. So they'll call mid-morning. What Darren would do is he would show up 6 a.m., full suit, with a clipboard, knock on the door, and they'd sort of open it and be like, who are you? He'd say, hey, I'm Darren. I'm here to sell your house. And if they didn't sign up with them then, around mid-morning, they'd get like a big gift basket. And early afternoon, when the associates would show up with a sold sign and said, you're going to need this when Darren sells your house. And Darren said he lost about 1 out of 5 for being very assertive, and he got the other 4. Because people were like, if you're going to work this hard to sell my house as you did to get my business, my house is going to be sold in no time. And guess what? It was. People are going to believe what you show them more than what you tell them. Okay. Sound of one hand clapping. Okay, there, Kazumi. Okay. Initiative is rewarded, right? You can put all this stuff in your resume about, like, I know how to take risks and show initiative and be assertive, or you could just show them. Okay. Show, don't tell. Okay, let's go on to tactic number 7. And I think this is another one of these big ones that if you've been zoning out, you've been trimming your bonsai tree or something, come back to me because this is really important. And a lot of times when I work with clients, this is where they get the most traction. And it's this: asking for help, networking. There's some of you who, if I was like, show me your Google contacts, right? And then we went through each and every one, and I said, did this person know you're on a job search? You'd be like, oh, well, I posted on LinkedIn 6 months ago, which means they don't, because it would have gone there that day and seen that post, and also they would have had to remember, and also they would have had to believe that you just hadn't given an update in 6 months, right? So that doesn't count. But how many of those contacts know you're on a job search, and how many of them have you asked for help within the last 2 weeks? And most of you, I suspect, watching this are like, well, but asking for help makes me look weak. No, wrong. Asking for help makes you look strong. Have you ever been to seen the Academy Awards and somebody wins a big prize and they get up there at the podium and they say, this is great. I got nobody to thank. The music keeps playing. It's kind of awkward. No, that doesn't happen. People who do great things do it with a lot of help. Like, I got to thank this person and this person, this person. The music starts playing. They have the giant cane to try and pull them off. And no. Right? So ask for help. People who ask for help, it makes you look strong, not weak. And by the way, when you do ask for help, it's a gift because you're showing other people that their help is worth something. So you're giving a gift. It makes you look strong, not weak. Guess what a great way to build trust is? Vulnerability. Brene Brown taught us this from UT, okay? Right? So, and you want to have a system, right? It's hard to ask for help. If you have 1,000 people, it's hard to reach out to all those 1,000 people every other week. So you want to have a system. What we want to do here is filter the ocean. Okay, folks? And that's one of the things I help my clients do. Okay, we're in the home stretch here. This is tactic number 8. We're talking about interviews. Who would like to have the best interview advice that's ever been given? I'm going to assume you do. Here it is. Listen carefully. You may want to write this down. I'm a trained professional here, so get ready. Don't answer their questions, right? If you've been going into an interviews and you've been studiously trying to answer their questions, please stop. Because interviews are weird, right? They just are. I mean, we put strangers in a room or a Zoom room and have some of them judge the other. There's nothing organic about them. They're weird, right? And trust me, they're not trying to get information about you. They could get that from your resume or asking you questions over email, right? What they're trying to do is get a sense of, wait for it, can we trust this person? That's it. And those of you who have given resumes know this. So when you're in the interview, like, you're not going to build trust by just, meticulously answering the questions they give, because they don't really care. They're just making mouth noise, so you'll make mouth noise so they can judge your mouth noise to see if your mouth noise is trustworthy. So you want to give answers that help them do that, and you want to tell stories that help them do that. Use the questions they ask as an excuse to do that, right? What's coming up on Thanksgiving, my dad used to say, the pie is just as an excuse to eat the whipped cream, right? So think about that. The questions are just an excuse for you to give the answers and tell the stories that are going to serve them, okay? Stop focusing on the questions. There's a better way. They don't care, right? They're trying to figure out if they can trust you. Okay, tactic number 9. Here's what yeah, you're right, Rosa. Interviews are unnatural. Here's the thing about offers. What I sometimes run into is I'll run into job seekers and they'll be like, well, Eric, you got to understand, I am very particular about where I apply. I'm like, interesting, say more. And they're like, well, because if I apply and I get the job and then I have to move the family to Connecticut and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, stop. It's perfectly understandable why in applying for jobs you would worry about, 1, whether it's a job you want, and 2, whether you're qualified. My invitation to you is don't do that. It's fine to do it, and it's optional, right? 1, you don't have to worry about whether you're qualified. They'll have an opinion. And actually, they're probably worried about more if they can trust you rather than you're qualified, but like we just talked about. And 2, you don't have to decide if you want the job unless and until you get the offer. Because once you get the offer, then you can decide, is this something I want? You can counter, you can say yes or no. That's a phone call. And I forget who it was earlier talked about, well, how do I make sure I'm in a position where I'm not given responsibility without control? Great question. This is that's where you do this, is at the job offer stage. You could say, hey, if I accept this offer, how are we going to handle responsibility and control? And that can be an agreement that's co-created. Okay. But you don't have to worry about that till you get the offer. So what this means is you can be a lot more free about applying because you don't have to worry if you get the offer. And frankly, I can't tell you how many clients I have that in interviews, they get through so many more rounds when they just decide they don't want the job. I have a client right now. She's gone through like a bunch of rounds, and it's actually a job that she kind of doesn't want. And she keeps getting to the next round. I can't tell you how often this happens. Okay. Don't worry until you get the offer. You want to apply liberally from a place of service rather than deciding, ooh, is this a job I want? The greater opportunity is to be like, is this a place are these people I could help? Okay. All right, folks, that was tactic number 9. So we're going to write this down. Some of you had asked for a summary earlier. Here it is. I'll slow down a little bit. And again, you're going to get these slides and we're about to go into questions. So look, some of you are hearing this stuff and you're like, yeah, this is different than stuff I've heard before. And I'm glad. And some of you are like, well, I'm going to go do this on my own. Cool. And I'm hearing from people right now that attended my workshop 6 months ago who are like, well, I'm doing everything you said, Eric. And I'm like, show me. And like, I'm saying, see how this is all about you and all about you and all about you. So the reason people work with me, folks, is it's sort of like having a personal trainer. Like you can go to the gym and you can work out and you'll get muscles, or you can get a trainer and you're just going to get bigger muscles faster. Right. So people that work with me, again, my calendar is filling up. It has been this whole workshop. So please, if you're not a serious job seeker, I love you. And please, like, I only have so many slots to give to serious job seekers. So don't do that. And if you are a serious job seeker and you haven't already, definitely book a call. Like I say, I've got a Black Friday deal going right now. Anybody who books a call with me between now and the end of the week is eligible for the deal, assuming that they're not already sold out. I started with 20 slots. I'm down to 8. So anyhow, if you're interested in booking a call, let's make it happen. And let's take some questions because there was a bunch that I didn't get to. And Ann, if you would, give us the good ones. All right, Ann, thanks for being there. Everybody give a golf clap to Ann, right? She's helping us out today. Ann's a rock star. Okay. So Lori asks, what's your opinion on a cover letter? So Lori, like, cover letters are great as long as you make it about them. And, some people are like, well, they don't ask for a cover letter. That's fantastic because that means all of your competitors are going to follow the directions and be like, okay, no cover letter. Okay. Right. Whereas you, Lori, can be the one that's like, yeah, I'm more interested in serving you than I am following your instructions. Right. By me giving you a cover letter, it's going to help you see what's possible for you. So here's your cover letter. And if they don't want it, they don't have to read it. So heck yes to a cover letter. And if they don't give you a place to upload it, just like attack it as a PDF to the same file as your resume. And I know different portals are sometimes easier than others. Okay. Sahara, hopefully I'm saying your name right. How do you follow up after application when most places don't provide your contact info? I work in tech. So here's the thing, Sahara. If you're in tech, you're probably pretty savvy at those computer things. There's software out there, right? You can make a good guess, right? A fun trick is if you guess an email address, put it into the to field of a Gmail. And if it pops up with their picture, you've got their email address correct. And by the way, when you do follow up, if it sounds something like, hey, I'm Sahara and I just wanted to follow up. I'm just wondering when you'll have a decision. Sorry, thanks for letting me pick on you, Sahara. Like, you don't want to do that because who's that about? What if you followed up and you didn't even mention that you were an applicant? This works, folks. It works with a lot of my clients. Okay. Let's see here, Ann. Uri says, Indeed says emails asking you to confirm your interest with a quick message to the employer a couple days. So here's a couple things. First of all, no more applying through Indeed or LinkedIn. Stop doing that. Because sometimes those aggregators will put up job listings just to get the traffic. Okay. What you want to do is find those opportunities through those aggregators and then go to the organization website. And if you don't see it there, it's possible that listing you saw in Indeed or LinkedIn is just a zombie listing. Nobody's checking it. Spend a lot of time. So, and you don't want to rely on like automated messages, right? So look, folks, there's so much about there. And so those of you who are like using Chat GPT and AI, it's beautiful. And it's not, you're missing opportunities because everybody is so dependent on automation and AI and all this other stuff. It just gives you such an opening to be human. And remember, let's all say it together. Who do humans hire? Thank you very much. Right? Humans hire humans. Okay, Emilio. Isn't there a disconnection between hiring managers and recruiters? How to sell your resume to both? Well, first of all, we're not going to be selling our resume to anybody because they don't want to buy our resume. They definitely don't even want to buy us. What they're interested in is exploring possibility. So we don't want to sell our stuff to anybody, Emilio. Thanks for letting me pick on you a little bit. And the recruiters are like highly trained ninja assassins when it comes to gatekeeping. And recruiters are fine. And my experience of many of them is they're the most fair weather friends you'll ever find, right? They're after a commission. They get paid by employers. All right. So they will be your best friend right up until the time that you're not in the running, and then they'll drop you like a wet noodle. Okay. And it's nothing personal. It's just, I guess it's how they're wired. So in terms of follow-up, recruiters are fine, but we want to find the hiring manager because that's the person that's going to appreciate your genius. They probably even speak your language if you're subject matter experts in the same field. So again, following up with recruiters is fine, but they're pretty good at just ignoring that. They'll be in touch with you when they want to. Whereas a hiring manager is the one sitting behind the scene, waiting on that recruiter, just drowning and dying. So I see, Ann, you can leave questions up. It's okay. Crystal, want to change careers? What job can project management skill set transition into? So I challenge you, Crystal, on this. Rather than decide, hey, I want to change careers and I have project management skill sets, what can I transition into? What if instead you looked out there and you find what organizations need help and you ask the question, can I help them? Right? It's a more powerful way to look at this, Crystal, right? Because it's not about you, it's about them. And it's not even about your skills, it's about what they need. And are you somebody that can help them reach their dreams? Are you somebody that can help them feel seen, heard, and understood? Nice. Okay, what else do we have here? Oksana, how do I get an interview? Yeah, Oksana, look, there's some things in a job search we can control, right? We can control how many applications we send, our follow-up, our networking. We can't control how many interviews we get, right? At least not directly. So the opportunity here is to basically do all the stuff I talked about, right? Make it about them. Make it about them in every stage. Make it about them when you apply, when you follow up, when you network. Make it about them. That's the surest, strongest way I know to get an interview. All right, folks. I know we're getting a little bit out of time here. We'll just take a couple more questions. And again, if you haven't, you're welcome, Crystal. If you haven't already booked a call with me, if there's even any time left on my calendar, book a call. Because I have a Black Friday thing going on. It's awesome. Okay, Denise says, do you think having a standard introduction to the question when they ask, tell me about me? Oh, yeah. Do you think having a standard introduction to the question when they ask, tell me about yourself? Okay, great question, Denise. So I don't have a standard introduction, but a great prompt I like when somebody says, tell me about yourself. And this is something I offer to my clients, is the 3 words, I love you. Because when they say, tell me about yourself, and let's say I'm applying to company XYZ that cares about A, B, and C, the last thing I want to do is say, oh, well, my name's Denise, and this thing about me, and here's where I went to school, and here's how I think I can really help you. Right? When they say, tell me about yourself, I'm going to be like, well, I'll tell you, Bob, I love XYZ company. And in particular, there's 3 things that stand out about XYZ. What you guys are doing with A matters so much to so many. There's so much opportunity with B, and the innovative things you guys are doing with C is just, I don't know, it's just really innovative. So look, Bob, I'm the best in the world at A, B, and C. Where would you like me to start first? But notice, at least at the beginning, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about them. And if they want to know about myself, I'll tell them all they want to know about myself that's relevant for them. Right? Or sometimes you might get somebody who's like, well, that's not really answering the question. Yeah, Bob, I could tell you my favorite color, or we could talk about what's possible for XYZ company. Where do you want to go? Trust me, Bob wants to know what's possible. Great question. Okay, Rosa, we're going to take 2 more questions. How far in advance of the end date should I be applying for roles? Planning ahead. So look, Rosa, it's a great question. I'm a big fan of applying first, right? If you can be the first one to apply, like do it. Because there have been many times where people have applied and they're like, well, hell, Rosa is exactly what we need. Let's close that job. Let's just talk to Rosa. So don't wait. Apply early, right? Apply early. All right. Let's see if we have one more question. Let's see if we do. We may have exhausted all of them. Great job, Anne. So look, one more. Thanks, Anne. Alethea says, can you give examples how to phrase follow-up cover letter opening that shows how you're positioning yourself as a person of service? Yeah. So Alethea, I'm going to do it for you right now. And this is for everybody in this workshop. Okay. So if I was doing a follow-up with you, you may actually get a message like this. I'm not sure. Alethea, the fact that you showed up for this workshop and you gave so much of your valuable time to attend a workshop like this is just really a sign that you take your career seriously. Not everybody takes their career seriously to come to a workshop like this 3 days before Thanksgiving. And Alethea, you do. Really just want to acknowledge you for being here, and can only imagine that the reason you're here is because you're interested in helping people that depend on you, and you're trying to make a dent and make impact in a world in need. And Alethea, I can only imagine the world needs more Alethea. So glad you're here. Now, I slipped an I in there at the very end, right? But that was mostly about Alethea. That's how you follow up, right? That's how you follow. Now, all that stuff I just said about Alethea was true, and I've never met Alethea, right? But I'm so glad she's here, right? And, right, if you can speak from the heart, like, it matters. So everything I just said, all those nice things I said about Alethea, I say to all of you. Again, if you haven't booked time with me, please get that handled. And I just offer to you that, you can get this job thing handled. I promise that you can. And those of you who are like, well, I just want to wait till after the holidays. Yeah, that's a mistake, because all your competitors are doing that and you don't want to. What you want to do is be the person that has systems in place right at the beginning of January. So when all those jobs come open in January, that, you're hitting the ground running. So thank you again for being here. Just acknowledge all of you. And if you haven't booked a call yet, already do, because I look forward to seeing you if you're serious. And if you book a call, don't cancel it, because like I say, I only have so many slots. So book a call if you're serious. You're not going to cancel, and we can get your job stuff handled. All right, my friends, have a great holiday weekend if you're celebrating. And I just acknowledge you all for being here, and keep up the good work. You can do it.